One gathers facts, the other gathers fortunes. And if you cannot learn from books, then learn from people. Find men who are already solving the problem you wish to solve. Ask questions. Observe. Serve under them if necessary. Wealth has no pride. It bows to humility in the short term, that it may rise in mastery later. Let me give you a further example. A young man came to me once and said, "I have no education. I am not wealthy. I don't know where to begin." I said, "What problem do people pay to have solved in your neighborhood?" And he said, "Many struggle with repairs and construction." I said, "Then learn every principle of building, blueprint reading, electrical framing codes. Become the best informed man in that domain." He obeyed. In 2 years, he owned a crew. In 5, he managed developments. In 10, he was a millionaire, not because he studied everything, but because he studied something deeply and applied it repeatedly. Now it is your turn. Do not wait for motivation. Create a curriculum. Read 1 hour per day on your subject. Write notes. Apply what you learned that very week. Begin with 1 client, 1 product, 1 offer, and build. Say this now. I do not study to impress. I study to earn. My knowledge solves problems. My mind builds wealth. Say it again. I do not study to impress. I study to earn. My knowledge solves problems. My mind builds wealth. If you obey this principle, you will never again fear recession, never again fear dismissal, never again fear being replaced, because the man who possesses specialized knowledge, backed by purpose, organized planning, and persistent action, becomes irreplaceable. Remember, the world pays for solutions, not degrees, for clarity, not confusion, for applied power, not gathered trivia. Now go gather the right knowledge and apply it. Riches do not begin in the bank. They begin in the workshop of the mind, in the realm of imagination, where all wealth is first sketched, rehearsed, and built in blueprint form. The man who neglects this faculty lives only by reaction, but the man who trains it becomes a creator, a builder of fortunes that others only dream of. Imagination is not fantasy. It is not daydreaming. It is not the idle wandering of a distracted mind. Imagination is the discipline of mental construction. It is the act of seeing with clarity what does not yet exist and holding to that vision until life obeys. Every great fortune began in a mind that dared to imagine boldly. The steel empire of Andrew Carnegie, the electric light of Thomas Edison, the Model T of Henry Ford, all of them were born in creative vision before they were ever molded by hands. Let us take Edison as our proof. Before his incandescent lamp lit the world, it existed only in his thoughts. 10,000 times he failed, not because he lacked tools, but because the image in his mind was not yet made real. But each failure refined his vision. Each setback clarified the design. And because he persisted in imagination, he succeeded in reality. The world rewards the man who builds before he sees. I tell you plainly, if you do not take time daily to imagine with purpose, you are walking blind. A drifting man is simply a man with no mental picture of where he is going. He moves with effort but no vision, and no enterprise, no wealth, no dominion can be built that way. So I now issue a command to your inner builder. Each day, sit in stillness, not for many hours, 15 minutes, 20 at most. Sit and see the business you are building, the offer you are perfecting, the home you are earning, the future you are forming. Walk the rooms of your enterprise. Feel the desks, the walls, the contracts, the partnerships. Smell the scent of success. Hear the sounds of value being exchanged. Experience it with all your senses in detail, because the subconscious does not know the difference between imagined success and reality. If you give it the blueprint, it will begin construction. And when you return from that mental workshop, you will move with a different energy. You will walk with confidence because you have seen what others have not. You will speak with clarity because you are no longer guessing. You are building what you have already witnessed. And this mental image, if repeated with clarity and emotion, will influence your speech, your posture, your decisions, and eventually your results. Understand this: the mind is either a place of rehearsal or regret. If you fill it with fear, it will rehearse failure. But if you fill it with vision, it will begin to construct the steps to bring that vision into form. Now, there are two kinds of imagination: synthetic and creative. Synthetic imagination combines old ideas in new ways. This is how most products, systems, and businesses are created, by joining what already exists in a form that has not yet been seen. Creative imagination, on the other hand, is the channel through which infinite intelligence speaks. It gives you ideas from the unknown. You cannot force it, but you can make yourself ready for it by discipline, silence, and expectation. Both are necessary. Both must be cultivated, and both must serve a definite chief aim. For imagination without aim is noise, but imagination with aim is blueprint. Now I ask you, what do you see when you close your eyes? Is it your past, your doubts, or is it the future you are building? If it is not the latter, then you must now install a new image, because the mind does not remain empty. It will be filled with something, and only the deliberate builder controls what that something is. Here is your exercise. Each morning after speaking your definite aim, close your eyes. Breathe deeply. Picture the success you are building in vivid detail, not in vague terms, in exact structure. See the number, see the letter, see the handshake. Walk through the business you are building as if it already exists. Say aloud, I see myself building. I walk the rooms of my idea. I feel the fortune forming. Again, I see myself building. I walk the rooms of my idea. I feel the fortune forming. Then rise and take one act that brings that vision closer to reality. Let me now give you an example. A man I once mentored imagined a school for trade workers, something that did not yet exist in his town. Each day he pictured the classrooms, the chalkboards, the curriculum, the handshake with the mayor. He could not afford it. He had no partners. But his vision was clear. He wrote his aim. He repeated it daily. He spoke as if it already was. Within 1 year, he had a small building. Within 3, he had students. Within 10, he had multiple locations. His wealth followed his vision, not the other way around. If you cannot see wealth, you will never hold it. But if you see it daily, speak it constantly, and build toward it repeatedly, the world must eventually yield. This is not superstition, this is law. You may ask, what if I imagine wrongly? Then I say, better a clear wrong vision that can be corrected than no vision at all. Because the mind that works upon a structure will always adjust, refine, and improve. But the mind that drifts builds nothing. Repeat this. I do not drift. I do not wait. I imagine. I see. I build first within and then without. Repeat again. I do not drift. I do not wait. I imagine. I see. I build first within and then without. That is your creed now. In the next part, you will learn how to organize the knowledge, people, and plans that imagination provides. But remember, everything begins in the workshop of the mind. Do not neglect it. Do not rush it. Do not treat it lightly. The man who imagines with discipline becomes the man who constructs with power. Desire alone does not build fortune. Faith alone does not build empire. Thought alone does not produce gold. These are essential, but they are only the foundation. The structure of success, the bridge from invisible to visible, is built by organized planning. Without a plan, your dreams remain air. Without action, your beliefs collapse under pressure. The man who hopes for riches yet plans nothing is a beggar dressed as a dreamer. But the man who desires, believes, and then organizes his steps with precision, That is the man whom riches obey. Let me make it plain. Every successful man you admire is a master of planning. Whether he built factories, sold steel, wrote books, invented machines, or governed nations, he did not rise by accident. He rose by blueprint. He rose by calculated effort. He rose by written, measured, and adjusted plans. Take Charles M. Schwab, one of the greatest industrial leaders this world has known. He was not merely intelligent, he was decisive, he was not simply bold, he was organized. He knew how to put men in place, ideas in motion, and time to profitable use. He moved quickly, not because he rushed, but because he had clarity of plan. So I ask you, what is your plan? Not your dream, not your wish, not your vague hope for more money someday, but your actual detailed written plan for building your fortune. If you do not have one, then stop everything else until you do. Because the man who moves without plan moves without direction, and no ship reaches its destination by drifting. You must now become the captain of your enterprise, and a captain requires a chart. Here is your instruction. Begin this week by crafting your plan in writing, not in your head, on paper. If you cannot put it in words, you cannot put it into action. And if you cannot act, you cannot succeed. What should your plan include? Let me give it to you step by step. The 7 elements of a sound plan. Definite purpose. What exactly do you want? Not vaguely, not emotionally, precisely. Be specific. Specific timeline. By when must it be achieved? Dates remove delay. Necessary knowledge. What specialized knowledge do you still lack? Where will you get it? Who has it? Required resources. What tools, skills, capital, and assistance are needed? Daily action steps. What will you do each day without exception to move toward your goal? Alliances. Who will you enlist, employ, or partner with? Success never walks alone. Flexibility for adjustment. What is your review schedule? Weekly? Monthly? No plan is perfect from the start. Adjust or perish. Once this plan is written, speak it aloud. Yes, speak your plan like a general giving orders. Let your voice hear your vision. Let your mind respond to your command. Your subconscious listens more to what you say than what others think. Let me address the man who says, "But I don't know where to begin." Then begin where you are. Your plan may be small today, but it must be real. Perhaps it is one new client, one new product, one page written, one meeting arranged. Start with what you can do today and plan tomorrow from there. If your first plan fails, do not collapse. Do not retreat. Replace it with a better one. Failure is often not failure at all. It is the world asking you to refine your plan. The man who insists on succeeding will change plans as many times as necessary, but the man who quits after one defeat is announcing that his desire was never real. Let me give you this quote and write it upon your mirror. Those who fail to plan, plan to fail. It is not cliché. It is law. Here now is your weekly ritual, Sunday evening or Monday morning. Review the previous week. What was accomplished? What was missed? Where did your plan hold? Where did it need adjusting? Update your written plan. Tighten your timeline. Add names, dates, amounts. Choose 3 key moves to execute in the coming week. Not 30, 3. And complete them no matter what. Speak your plan aloud at the start of each day. Let your mind and body be instructed by your vision. Act before you feel ready. Planning is not a replacement for movement. It is the guide for movement. Do not wait until every detail is perfect. Act, then refine. Let me remind you, Edison built his workshop long before his inventions were perfected. Ford assembled teams while still improving his engines. Carnegie scaled his operations before they were flawless. They all planned, and they all adjusted. That is the rhythm of wealth. Now speak this aloud. I do not drift. I move with a plan. My plan is alive, and I act on it daily. Say it again with conviction. I do not drift. I move with a plan. My plan is alive, and I act on it daily. This is your new posture. This is your new rhythm. This is the difference between a man who dreams and a man who builds. Let us leave no room for doubt. Thought must be crystallized. Faith must be organized. Action must be structured. Only then do results become repeatable. The man who walks with a definite plan walks with power. The man who drifts with vague intention is carried by the winds of emotion, and those winds are never kind. There is one line that separates the man of action from the man of regret. It is not talent. It is not birth. It is not education. It is decision. The man who makes decisions quickly and changes them slowly is the man who is obeyed by life. The man who delays, debates, postpones, and hesitates is left behind, his dreams rusting in the waiting room of fear. Indecision is the assassin of wealth. It has no blood on its hands because it kills in silence. No gunfire, no battle cry, just the slow death of opportunity passing by the man who never stood up and declared, "This is mine." Let me speak to you plainly. Riches do not wait for the hesitant. They obey the bold. They follow the one who commits. They rush to meet the man who decides and does not look back. Take, for example, Napoleon Bonaparte. He was not the tallest, he was not the strongest, but he was the fastest to decide. When others paused, he moved. When others pondered, he acted. And because of this, he conquered nations, built empires, and wrote his name into the pages of history. Now, I do not tell you this to admire a conqueror. I tell you this to awaken the conqueror within yourself. You too are waging a war, not with armies, but with delay, with comfort, with doubt, with the deadly voice of maybe later. Every fortune, every empire, every business, every destiny has a date of decision. A moment when a man draws a line in the sand and says, "No more waiting, no more wishing, no more wondering. I decide and I act." This is what I now ask of you. Make a decision, not tomorrow, not when it's easy. Now decide what you want. Decide when you will have it. Decide what you will give in exchange. And then bind yourself to that decision as if your life depends on it, because it does. You say, "But what if I'm wrong?" Then be wrong boldly. The man who moves even in error will still learn, grow, and rise. But the man who waits to be perfect never begins. You say, "But I'm not ready." Then become ready through motion. No man ever feels fully prepared to build a fortune, but fortune does not wait for readiness. It responds to resolve. Let me give you a simple drill and do not dismiss it. This week, within the next 7 days, make one bold financial decision. It could be to start your business, to call that client, to register that domain, to ask for that sale, to hire that help, to write that proposal, anything that moves the needle. Do not overthink it. Choose it and do it. Because action is the antidote to fear. Every time you act, you train your subconscious that you are not a slave to hesitation. You train yourself into greatness. You begin to install the identity of a decisive man. Let me remind you, Andrew Carnegie did not wait to have all the money before he began construction. He began, and the money followed. Edison did not wait for perfect plans. He began experimenting, and the clarity came. Henry Ford did not wait for public approval. He decided that the world needed affordable cars, and history obeyed his decision. So why do you wait? Why do you hesitate? Could it be that you are still asking for permission to succeed? Then hear me now. You need no permission. Decide now. Decide fiercely. Decide with finality. Say aloud, "I act, I decide, I commit, I rise by obedience to my own will." Again, louder. "I act, I decide, I commit, I rise by obedience to my own will." There's a transformation that takes place in the moment of real decision. Your voice changes, your back straightens, your doubts vanish, not because the path is easier, but because you have chosen to walk it. Now I must warn you, the moment you decide, resistance will appear. The world will test your seriousness. Delay will disguise itself as logic. Friends will question your plan. Fear will whisper again, ignore it. This is not the time for public opinion. This is not the season for committee votes. This is the hour of the one-man declaration. You have wasted enough time. You have waited enough seasons. You already know what to do. Now you must simply do it. Let me offer you this parting thought. The man who fails to decide lives a life that was decided for him by others. But the man who decides, who acts, builds a life in his own image. This is the power of decision, and this, if obeyed, is the day that everything begins to change. Success does not come to the cleverest man. It does not come to the man of the highest talent or greatest inheritance. It comes to the man who refuses to quit. Persistence is the iron will that crushes every form of opposition, swallows every defeat, and marches forward when all others have sat down. It is not emotional. It is not flashy. It is not loud, but it is unbeatable. Let me say it plainly. No man is ever defeated until he quits in his own mind. And most men do not fail because they lack opportunity. They fail because they stop digging just before the gold. Let us recall a true story. There was once a man named R.U. Darby who heard of gold in the hills of Colorado. He raised funds, purchased equipment, and after weeks of digging, struck a rich vein. He had found it, but after extracting only a few carloads of ore, the vein disappeared. He and his uncle kept drilling, but nothing. Discouraged, they gave up and sold the machinery to a junk dealer. That junk dealer, however, consulted a mining engineer who studied the fault lines and determined that the vein had merely shifted. 3 feet, that's all. He drilled 3 feet from where Darby had stopped and struck millions. Understand the lesson. Darby quit 3 feet from gold. He had the tools, he had the dream, he had the plan, but he lacked the one thing that could have made all the difference: persistence. I must now ask you, where have you stopped digging? What idea did you abandon because results did not arrive fast enough? Where have you allowed emotion to interrupt obedience? Let us be clear. Persistence is not luck, it is built. It is not the domain of the naturally disciplined. It is a muscle that any man may forge. And I now give you the 4 steps to build persistence. 1. A definite purpose backed by burning desire. If your desire is weak, your persistence will be weaker. Fire is the fuel. Review your definite chief aim every morning and night. If your aim does not excite you, change it. But once chosen, commit without escape. 2. A definite plan expressed in continuous action. Persistence is not vague trying, it is planned effort. Even 1 step a day, taken without exception, is more powerful than 10 heroic leaps taken occasionally. A man who moves daily, even in struggle, builds an unstoppable rhythm. 3. A mind closed, tightly against all negative influence. You must become immune to discouragement. You must silence the doubter's voice. Whether it comes from without or within, you must say, "That is not my voice. I move forward." Persistence cannot breathe in the atmosphere of complaint. 4. A friendly alliance with 1 or more persons who encourage you to follow through. This is your mastermind. You need not a crowd, but you do need at least 1 man or woman who holds you to your decision. Let them speak your plan back to you. Let them demand action when you delay. These are the 4 pillars. Master them, and you will not be easily stopped. Now I give you a weekly drill. At the end of each week, sit quietly and ask, did I act every day this week? Where did I hesitate? What obstacles resisted me? And did I push back or surrender? Never let 2 days pass without action. 1 may be forgiven, but 2 becomes habit, and habit becomes identity. You are not a man who gives up. You are not a man who explains delay. You are a man of continuity, a man of follow-through, a man who has decided and now demands results. Let me remind you, Henry Ford did not become a titan because his engines worked on the first try. He became great because he kept building them when no one believed they would work. Edison did not succeed because of quick success, but because of 10,000 failures that never made him quit. These men were not gods. They were persistent men. Say aloud now, I persist, I endure, I win because I refuse to yield. Again, with more authority, I persist, I endure, I win because I refuse to yield. There is a power that rises in the man who keeps his word to himself, a kind of nobility, a quiet force. The world begins to move out of his way, not because it fears him, but because it respects his determination. Let me warn you, there will be days when emotion says, rest. When fear whispers, this isn't working. When logic argues, try something easier. Ignore them all, because success is not given to the smartest or to the most inspired. It is given to the last man standing. You will become that man by deciding that you cannot be broken. Let me leave you with this. If you persist, truly daily through failure, ridicule, boredom, fatigue, and fear, you will rise. It is not opinion, it is law, and you now obey that law. No man has ever built a great fortune alone. Though he may appear to stand at the top by himself, though the applause may fall upon his shoulders, the power behind his empire is never the work of a single mind. It is the result of harmonized minds, aligned in spirit, united in purpose, and fused by faith. Let me now speak of the most overlooked law of success, the power of the mastermind. When two or more minds unite in harmony, they create a third invisible force. This force is greater than the sum of its parts. It is real. It is alive. It is unseen, yet measurable by its effects. It is the very source of power that built every kingdom, enterprise, and legacy the world has ever known. Andrew Carnegie, one of the richest men to ever walk this earth, did not become wealthy through steel alone. He became wealthy because he surrounded himself with minds that sharpened, supported, and challenged his own. He declared before his death that his true riches came not from his plants or patents, but from his mastermind alliance. A carefully selected group of men who thought together, planned together, and moved together with one heartbeat, one aim, one definite goal. You must now do the same. If you attempt to build your fortune in isolation, your strength will soon fade. Your mind will tire. Your enthusiasm will falter. The burdens will feel heavier than they are. And in time, your dream will begin to appear as a fantasy. But if you build a circle of minds, men and women who believe with you, who think with you, who push you, you will no longer walk alone. You will walk with compound force. Let me be clear. The mastermind is not a casual friendship. It is not a social club. It is not idle talk. It is a spiritual and mental alliance among two or more people who have pledged to uphold a definite purpose and who have brought their minds into complete harmony to achieve it. One negative voice can poison the alliance. One selfish motive can break its power. Therefore, you must choose wisely. Seek those who think independently, speak truthfully, and act boldly. Let no weak-willed soul into your inner circle, for their doubt is contagious, and their aimlessness will pull you off course. Your first assignment is this: identify one person whose goals align with your own. They need not be in the same business. They need only be driven by a burning purpose and willing to meet with you weekly. Once found, meet at the same time on the same day without fail. Begin each meeting by restating your chief aims aloud. Share progress, identify obstacles, offer counsel, hold one another to action. If no such person exists in your current environment, then become worthy of one, and you will attract them. Now listen to this truth. The mastermind does more than provide support. It multiplies creative power. When your mind joins another in harmony, new ideas appear that neither of you could have summoned alone. Hunches, insights, inspiration, plans, solutions. It is as though a third mind has entered the room. And that mind belongs not to you or your ally, but to the invisible source of intelligence that governs this universe. I have seen it with my own eyes. I have felt its power. and I have watched men rise from obscurity to greatness by obeying this law. You must never again believe the lie that solitude is strength. Solitude is useful for reflection, but coordinated alliance is the builder's strength. Every castle has its architects, every empire its generals, every fortune its circle of minds. Let me now ask you, who is in your circle? Who do you allow to shape your thoughts, your plans, your beliefs? If the answer is no one, you are vulnerable, and if the answer is the wrong one, you are in danger. The man who surrounds himself with fearful men will inherit their fear. The man who dines with doubters will digest doubt. But the man who walks with builders, thinkers, and warriors, he becomes one himself. Here is your weekly drill. Choose one individual whose mind and aim align with your own. Schedule a weekly meeting. No excuses, no rescheduling. In that meeting, state aloud your definite chief aim, your progress since the last meeting, your next step, decided before the meeting ends. Commit to complete that step by the next meeting. If you cannot find such a person immediately, begin by speaking aloud your vision daily. The power of faith attracts its equal. Speak as if your circle already exists, and it will soon appear. Say this aloud now. I build with others. I align in purpose. We rise as one for one goal. Again, I build with others. I align in purpose. We rise as one for one goal. This is the voice of a man who understands power. Not the power of brute force, but the power of mental unity, moral harmony, and shared vision. Never again believe that isolation is noble.